Hello, guys, and so far, Robert Sanchez has made 5 errors in the Premier League, the most of any goalkeeper in Europe, and he has made more errors than Kepa Arrizabalaga has made in his entire career in the Premier League. So Kepa just made 4, all the games that Kepa has played, but Sanchez has made 5 in 23 games. Now, Manchester City actually found a way of playing through Chelsea. And when you look at the way Manchester City played, you might have thought that that's a team that actually rested for an entire week and not the team that lost to PSG. So when you look at this, we can conclude that Pep Guardiola actually outclassed Maresca in this game tactically, and Manchester City players outplayed Chelsea in this game. Now, what we're going to look at in this video is we're going to analyze what really happened in this game. If you've watched my shot, you probably know. Now, Chelsea were playing with a mid-block with an aggressive high line. A high line when you're facing Haaland and trying to compress spaces so that players like Foden cannot have space. And Manchester City's trick for this game was simple: either play around Chelsea or play over Chelsea. And this was aided because of how Chelsea failed to close down important players with the ball. Manchester City identified they could either play through Chelsea by looking to find players in between the lines, especially players like Phil Foden, if they were not covered with players such as Fernandes in the team. Alternatively, they could also look to find ways in which they would get the ball to the wide areas, and in particular, look to play runners who are making runs behind Chelsea's back line. And this was just a clear strategy that Guardiola had instructed his team to just go direct with Chelsea. And in some instances, Man City scored, the goal got disallowed, and even they had opportunities where they should have scored in this game. But in our video today, we go and analyze in-depthly and understand what's wrong with Chelsea. Now, looking at these statistics, you automatically notice that between Chelsea and Manchester City, Chelsea lost the ball a lot than Manchester City, and Manchester City capitalized on those ball losses. The same goes to Chelsea, but Chelsea did not actually capitalize in a lot of those balls they lost. Another thing that annoyed me was how Chelsea played in the first half, especially looking to respect Manchester City. And we knew in our preview that if Chelsea pressed Manchester City like hell, they could have something in the game. And when they went 2-1 down is when Chelsea upped their game. And that's why in the second half, the possession actually went into a balanced way. But the game was already over because Chelsea got outplayed, outclassed, and outmaneuvered by Manchester City. But before we even start our analysis, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Now, one thing we noticed is how Chelsea started the game, and Chelsea started the game in a very good way. Chelsea were looking to press Manchester City aggressively high, to a point they were ready to go man-to-man, with players such as Jackson leading the press, and players like Sancho, who was leading to press the Manchester City centre-back. And in fact, during these scenarios, as well as when Chelsea looked to win the ball forward, they were able to go direct. And in this kind of scenarios is where Manchester City made the first error of the game, and Chelsea punished them deservedly. But Chelsea should have smelt blood because Manchester City now looked shaky and terrified. Here, Chelsea has won the ball when they were pressing Manchester City, and they have gone directly to Jackson. Jackson win his aerial duel against Manchester City's recent centre-back addition. When Jackson wins this ball, this centre-back makes a crucial error, and Jackson is able to pounce on the ball. Now, whenever Jackson is able to pounce on the ball, look at the position that Noni Madueke is actually occupying. Madueke is in a position where Jackson is able to play a simple pass to him. He has an empty net, and Noni Madueke puts Chelsea 1-0 up. But that was not going to be the only mistake that Manchester City were making in this game. Because of this kind of scenario, we saw Manchester City adapting. with in particular, Ederson stepping out to actually play as an outfielder, and this happened earlier in the second half when Chelsea resorted in a high press. And Ederson in particular, under no pressure, looked to play the balls over the top, especially in the space between Sanchez and Trevor Chalobah. And this allowed Haaland to receive the ball or outmuscle Chalobah. In fact, Chalobah got injured during one of those duels. But again, why did this happen? Because Chelsea's forwards were not putting a lot of pressure on Ederson. Here, Ederson has the ball. Rather than Jackson covering his run to try and cover the holding midfielder and press, Jackson is reluctant. When Jackson now decides to play the ball to Ederson and Chelsea decides to go aggressively onto Manchester City, Ederson is able to maneuver, play the ball to the centre back, then receive the ball. And once Ederson is receiving this ball with a lot of space, he can easily see that penetrative pass in midfield. Ederson is able to play that ball over the top. Colwill misses that chance, and now Erling Haaland is having a 1v1 at the back. And Manchester City did exactly what they did against Arsenal. In that game, they beat Arsenal 4-1. Another thing we saw is the cluelessness that Chelsea had in covering that space and the precision that Manchester City had in playing those balls. And this happened in Manchester City's second goal when Ederson played that ball in space and Haaland made that run. Instead of, because Haaland received the ball and Trevor Chalobah was making a run to try and cover, Sanchez was caught on no man's land, and that's how Manchester City scored. And this is the exact scenario. Chalobah has moved to try and close in Erling Haaland. Sanchez, instead of running back to goal and trying to prevent that goal, is busy in that position. Here again, Haaland has managed to beat Colwill and he plays a simple pass to Phil Foden. And in this position, Manchester City are 2v2 against Chelsea centre-back, and Phil Foden shoots the ball over the bar, and Manchester City should have actually scored a goal from this kind of position because that's how they actually look to play through Chelsea. Now, the problems did not stop for Chelsea even in the later stages of the first half when they started to sit in a mid block. And why? Because Chelsea lost this game on three fronts. The first front is the bad goalkeeper, the second front is their highlight, the third front is their missed chances from Jackson. Manchester City started by having their fullbacks starting wide as convectional fullbacks. Now, when fullbacks start in this convectional way, Manchester City were looking to play around Chelsea. Chelsea's forwards were looking to close the center of the pitch, but closing this center of the pitch, Maresca wanted to narrow the space between the defense line and the midfield line and decided to push that defense line aggressively high to try and have a compact shape. But again, this is counterproductive because if you want to play aggressively, then your forward players need to be aggressive. But if you want to play passive, you cannot afford to allow a lot of spaces in behind. That's why teams do not play with a mid block. But who are Chelsea? Chelsea wanted this so that whenever they won the ball, they will find themselves in better positions to counter. But this again proved to be counterproductive. Now, Chelsea found a way of actually beating this press, and in the 8th minute, Chelsea were in a position where they could actually go 2-0 up. Enzo wins the ball, plays the ball to Cole Palmer, and look at the position that Jackson is occupying. Jackson is making a run and Cole Palmer is here in this position. He has won the ball and he's in a perfect position. Once this happens, Jackson fails to score a goal. And now, because Manchester City identified that them having their conventional fullbacks and wingers in the wide areas, they could actually look to try and use their numerical advantage in the wide areas to create problems. In particular, down the left flank, Vardiol started to play like a conventional fullback, while the left winger tried to play in field to drag Reece James out of position. We started to see Ilkay Gundogan and Kovacic in particular dropping deep and looking to play those balls towards those positions. This overload created a lot of problems for for James, because they look to prevent a lot of to create problems for Chelsea. And Gundogan and Reece James, and Gundogan in particular, had space to play balls over the top. The problem was with Jackson and Palmer, who allowed him that space, because you can see he's having time to play that ball rather than players such as Palmer and Jackson looking to close him down. And when Manchester City were able to play those balls over the top. They were able to find players, their wingers, in dangerous positions where they were able to attack and cause problems for Chelsea, and that's how Manchester City even scored. Here again, Chelsea are looking to play with the mid block, but look, Jackson and Palmer are not closing down Kovacic and Gundogan. These two players were being allowed time and time on the ball. I kept on asking myself, why is Maresca not changing it? Why is Maresca not shouting at Jackson and Palmer to close them down? And now he invented a way of dropping Noni into the backline. And this further created problems because you're dropping Noni into the backline and then you're allowing the players who are playing those balls over the top to do it. So why play with a high line if you want your forwards to be passive? And this is what made Vardiol to actually make that run and score the equalizer. Here again, Chelsea are playing with an aggressive block, but again, they are not looking to apply pressure on the player on the ball, and this is allowing Manchester City that space. Here again, Chelsea are playing with that high line. Look at the high line, but look at the space that Gundogan has, and Gundogan is able to spot the run of Phil Foden, play that ball, and that's how Chelsea conceded that goal. Again, it was just constant playing balls over the top because you're playing with an aggressive line, but you're not applying pressure. And Sanchez was in this position almost catching the ball, made a mistake, and Chelsea conceded a goal. Now, this is something that Manchester City perfected. Here again, you can see Chelsea were looking to play with that high block so that when they win the ball, they're able to transition fast. But this was detrimental for them because even when Chelsea had the opportunity to transition fast and even found themselves in those positions, Chelsea were unable to capitalize, especially having players like Jackson receiving the ball in space, and rather than them attempting to have a shot on goal and actually score a goal, Jackson actually missed this opportunity. This is not just not what happened when you look at how Manchester City looked to play through Chelsea, but we can also look at how Chelsea looked to try and play when they had the ball. Now Chelsea were interesting. Now when Chelsea had the ball, they tried to play from the back, with Jackson stepping out to play as an extra centre-back, Chalobah spreading wide, and Colwill starting down the left wing. And we saw Reece James inverting while Cucurella generating the width. But whenever the ball was played towards Cucurella, Manchester City were having their fullbacks closing them down. And they are the aged team. And the ball will be played to Jackson. Jackson will be so poor receiving the ball under pressure and he will lose the ball. And Manchester City will turn a Chelsea's attacking phase strategy into their own counter-attacking phase strategy. Here again, you can see how Manchester City are well positioned to apply pressure through the middle and force Chelsea to play down the wide areas. A coordinated press. But whenever Chelsea beat this press, especially Cole Palmer, he was looking to play balls over the top for Madueke. Again, Madueke's body language and complacency was not quite the best in this game, and Chelsea did not capitalize on this. The center of the pitch was also quite vacated by Chelsea, and Chelsea looked to respect Manchester City a lot in this game. Chelsea are now attacking a disoriented Manchester City side. A simple pass in that space, and that could find Chelsea in a very comfortable position. Chelsea were looking to employ that 3-5 by having Reece James invert alongside Moses Caicedo, while Manchester City were looking to play with that 4-4-2. The difference between Manchester City's and Chelsea's position is that Manchester City's forwards, Phil Foden and Haaland, were quite aggressive. They looked to force Chelsea centre-backs to play the ball backwards, and then they will not themselves play with an aggressive high line. Now what you get here is tactical naivety from Maresca, who was outcoached, outclassed, and outplayed by Pep, because Pep Guardiola used the same trick time and time again against Maresca, and Maresca had no answer against it. Again, Chelsea are facing two huge problems. After spending £1 billion, Chelsea do not have a competent goalkeeper, Chelsea do not have a strong centre forward, Chelsea do not have a world-class centre-back, and these are the core of the spine of the team. The questions do not just fall on Enzo Maresca, but they underpin and uncover poor recruitment by Chelsea's top hierarchy. What do you think? Leave your comments in the comment section area below, and thanks for watching.